All right, guys, so I thought that I would make a video on how to wire your overland topper like this, your camper, or your van, right? So we've got two systems in here, well, three. We've got a 12-volt system, right? That runs off the vehicle's battery. We have a 120-volt system that runs off an inverter, which runs off the battery. And then we have our lighting system, which is a little bit different, but it's important for campers because campers have some different types of wiring. So if we come in here, you'll see we've got wiring that runs all the way around here. I'm going to have a switch panel and some access there. And then if we come over here, this is where inverter, fuse box, and everything is going to be. We have a wire that comes over here, goes up and over to the door because we're going to have a stereo mounted on the door. So I can jam out on the outside of this thing if or when I want to. Now, pretty basic. Now, the 12-volt system, we have a distribution. So power will come from the vehicle and run through this fuse box. You can see it has a positive inlet right there. We're going to hook that up to the vehicle power, and that will give power to all 6 of these circuits. That's what it's called. So each circuit right here, I'm going to come over here. Each circuit on here is an all the way out and then in. So it's a full circle. If you interrupt that circle, your device won't turn on. So say this wire comes all the way around and over here for our overhead lights, right? So this wire goes to our overhead lights as well. So that's going to come over here and switch our overhead lights on, right? So if we come all the way to the overhead lights, but they don't complete the circuit and go back to the battery, then they won't turn on. That's how power goes through a device. It can't just go to the device. So our full circuit here starts with a battery. Positive goes to a switch. That switch goes to the device, and then the device grounds to the battery. So it's a full circle. If you turn the switch off, right, then there won't be a full circle, so the power can't go all the way through. Pretty basic stuff, but if you don't know, it's important to know how it works. We have 6 individual circuits here. These are our, I believe this, I'm not sure, I think that's overhead lights actually, but regardless, that's how the circuit works. So you want to make sure that you have a fuse block, because when you come over here, say this guy right here, say it rubs through and then touches that metal. Why is that bad? Because the entire chassis, most vehicles nowadays are what's called chassis ground. So because this whole thing is metal, we can just ground to here, to this bolt, anywhere, because this is all metal. So if we ground to the chassis, that means we only have 1 wire per circuit instead of a wire going all the way out and then coming back, right? So 6 circuits would be 12 wires, but if we do chassis ground, we only have to have 6 wires. That's more efficient. That's how vehicles are done nowadays. This Jeep right here has 2 positives, well, 3 positives, 1 for the quarter light, 1 for the reverse light, and then 1 for the turn signal and illumination for brake lights. That's only 3 wires go into that, and then it's chassis ground, other than having 6 wires, which would be a total of 12 for what's ultimately 1, 2, 3, 4 different light settings, right? So more efficient, cheaper, lighter, and more reliable. That's how a 12-volt system works. Moving on to a 120-volt system. We're going to have an inverter. The 12-volt is DC. The inverter converts that to AC. Right? So if we come over here, we can see the wire that we're using. Now, in a house, you would use solid core wire because AC travels better over solid core wire. However, we need flexible wire. That's why we're using an extension cord here. We could also use some of this wire, but I already have the extension cord, so might as well just keep it all together. Now, on here, we have our neutral, our ground, and then our hotline. This guy is the one that carries the electric, right? The AC is alternating current, so it actually pushes and then pulls. So instead of going all the way full circle like a DC circuit. In order for this to work, we need our neutral. This absorbs the residual electricity from here, which completes the circuit and gives this a place to push and pull from through the device. Our ground is here in case there's a device failure or any kind of like lightning strike, anything like this. Ground is literally exactly what it says. The circuit in your house goes to ground, which is in the ground. Most houses have just a huge rod stabbed into the ground under the foundation, under the patio, whatever, and then a wire coming into the basement and goes to the electrical panel. So not really a lot of point of having a ground in an inverter system, but our inverter has a ground on it, so we will just go ahead and utilize that. Anyways, we're going to use household plugs for this. I'm going to plug this into the inverter. This right here will go to our 120 volt plug. We will run a fuse on the 12 volt going into the inverter, but we're not going to run a fuse on this 120 volt system because it is fused before the inverter. This line comes all the way over here, and then we have our 120 volt, right? So we're going to hook this up to a house plug, which will be right here, and then we'll have two house switches, one for overhead lights, and then one for our patio light, which is right there. Pretty interesting. So that's a quick basic breakdown on those two systems. If you've watched all the way to this, please like and subscribe. I'm now going to go over the Illumination here. So what we're going to do is hook, this is a trailer, right? So it has trailer lights. There are 4 wires on here. One is a ground, and then we have our illumination and turn signals, right? So ground is to complete the circuit. We have our illumination right here. I believe actually the green one is the illumination. So it just turns on the lights, doesn't flash them or anything like that. So these lights have a high and low setting. So when we turn on the lights, it's like having your license plate light on or your or just your normal lights on without using brake lights or turn signals or hazards or anything like that. Then we have our left illumination, right illumination. So both of these will have power when you're using your brakes, but this one will have power when your lights are on. So we're going to use this plug, and we're going to, well, not that one, but a plug like that. And we're going to have it come out of here. This is where the trailer plug is on my truck. We're going to have this plug into the truck itself, and then we're going to run some illumination at the top. We're not running any turn signals or anything, but we're going to run 5 clearance lights on the rear, which are red, and then 5 clearance lights on the front, which are amber. Pretty simple. We're just going to have it come in here. It'll be 2 wires, ground and illumination, and then those 2 wires will come up here. We'll drill the holes for the wires up there, and then run a line up to the front, drill the holes, mount the lights, and then just positive and negative up there. We'll probably do chassis ground for that. I'm not totally sure for that, having that system, because they're LEDs, having that independent of any other systems might be beneficial, because I plan on adding solar to this later, and I don't want to have any weird amperage draw or anything like that. So running a positive and a ground between all those, and then the one ground all the way back, and then the one ground down just to the plug, so it's all isolated and directly related to the truck, not grounded via the canopy, because if the canopy has any grounding issues or heavy loads, such as some lights, stereo going, things like that. You can switch on a ground circuit. Sometimes there is a time for that, but having a weak or problematic ground can cause electrical issues. So it's ideal to use the positive circuit for your switched on off. The ground issues, I'm not sure why it does that, but that's just the way that it goes. Electrical issues are always caused by a bad ground. Anyways, like, subscribe. Thanks for watching. Enjoy your day.